Adam rushed through the bustling train station, his leather satchel slung over his shoulder and his phone clutched tightly in his hand. He was running late for an important client meeting, his mind racing with thoughts about the presentation he had carefully prepared. The station was alive with the sounds of announcements, chattering passengers, and the hum of trains pulling in and out. Just as Adam approached the platform, two uniformed security officers stepped in front of him. One of them, a tall man with a stern expression, raised his hand. "Excuse me, sir, we need to check your bag," he said in a tone that left no room for discussion. Adam blinked, caught off guard. "My bag? Why? Did I do something wrong?" he asked, his voice tinged with confusion. "It's a routine check," the officer replied curtly. Without waiting for a response, they motioned for Adam to step aside. Feeling uneasy but unwilling to cause a scene, Adam nodded and moved to the side of the platform. Passers-by glanced at him curiously as the officers unzipped his bag and began rummaging through its contents. Inside, they found nothing unusual: a laptop, a notebook filled with sketches, a water bottle, and a USB drive tucked into a small pocket. The officers inspected each item carefully, their eyes scanning for something they didn't explain. Adam felt his cheeks flush with embarrassment as more people began to stare. "Is this really necessary?" he asked, trying to keep his tone polite. "Routine procedure," the second officer, a woman with sharp eyes, said dismissively. She zipped up his bag and handed it back to him. "You're free to go." Adam hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to press further. Instead, he slung his bag over his shoulder and hurried away, his face still warm with humiliation. As he boarded the train, Adam couldn't shake the feeling that something about the encounter wasn't right. The officers hadn't explained why they had stopped him or what they were looking for. He glanced around the crowded train car, feeling an unfamiliar sense of vulnerability. He tried to brush it off. "It's nothing," he muttered to himself. "Just bad luck." But deep down, Adam couldn't ignore the nagging question swirling in his mind. Why had they chosen him? What if they had been searching for something specific? And why had they looked so intent on finding it? The train pulled out of the station, and Adam stared out the window, his thoughts far from the meeting he was supposed to be preparing for. Something about the encounter didn't sit right with him, and he had a sinking feeling that this wasn't the end of the story. As the city blurred past, Adam decided he would find out the truth, even if it meant uncovering something he wasn't prepared for. Adam sat in the meeting room, his laptop open in front of him, and his presentation slides ready to go. The client, a middle-aged man with sharp eyes, drummed his fingers on the table as he waited. But Adam's mind wasn't in the room. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't focus. The memory of the officers searching his bag kept replaying in his head. It wasn't the search itself that bothered him the most. It was the way they'd done it. No explanation, no real reason, just a vague routine procedure. "Adam." The client's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. "Sorry, oh." What was the question? Adam stammered, embarrassed. The client raised an eyebrow. "Are you ready to start?" Adam nodded quickly and dove into his presentation, forcing himself to stay focused. But even as he explained his designs and ideas, the questions in his mind grew louder. Why did they stop me? Was I acting suspicious? Did they find something in my bag I didn't know about? The meeting ended, and Adam left the office feeling even more unsettled. His friend Marcus called him on his way back to the train station. "How'd the meeting go?" Marcus asked, his cheerful voice a stark contrast to Adam's mood. "Fine, I guess," Adam replied, though he didn't sound convincing. "What's wrong?" Marcus asked, picking up on his tone. Adam hesitated, then explained what had happened earlier that morning. Marcus listened carefully, his usual joking tone replaced by concern. "That's weird," Marcus said when Adam finished. "Did they say anything about why they stopped you?" "No," Adam said. "That's what's bothering me. They didn't tell me anything. They just searched my bag and let me go. Could be nothing, Marcus said thoughtfully, but I've been hearing stories about stuff like this happening to other people lately. What kind of stories? Adam asked, his pulse quickening. Like people getting stopped for random checks and then finding out something was missing from their bags later, Marcus explained. A guy at work said his wallet was gone after something like that. Adam's heart sank. He hadn't checked his bag since the search. As soon as he got home, he opened it and began inspecting every item. His laptop was still there, as was his notebook and water bottle. But then he noticed something odd. His USB drive, the one containing sensitive client files and his personal work, was missing. Adam's stomach churned. He couldn't remember if it had been there when he left the house, but he was almost certain it was. Why would it be gone now? The unease he felt earlier turned into something heavier, fear mixed with anger. Was this just a coincidence, or was something more sinister going on? Adam sat down, staring at his bag, his mind racing. He knew one thing for sure. He needed answers. Adam couldn't sit still. The missing USB drive felt like a bad omen, one he couldn't ignore. He rummaged through his bag again, hoping he'd simply overlooked it. But no matter how many times he checked, it wasn't there. Maybe I left it at home, Adam muttered, though he didn't believe it. The drive was always in the small pocket of his bag. He never took it out unless he needed it. Grabbing his phone, he called Marcus. "Hey, the USB drive I told you about. It's gone." Adam said, his voice tense. "Gone? Are you sure?" Marcus asked. "Yeah, it's always in my bag, and now it's missing." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Marcus said, "Adam, I don't think this is just random bad luck. You should have seen how my coworker reacted when his wallet disappeared. He said the security team denied everything when he asked about it." Adam felt his stomach churn. "But why would they take my USB drive? It's just work stuff." "Maybe it's not about what's on the surface," Marcus replied. "What if they're targeting specific people for a reason?" The idea sent a chill down Adam's spine. He hung up and immediately checked his emails. One of the files on the missing drive was a highly sensitive project for a major client. If someone had access to that data, it could create serious problems, not just for Adam, but for the client's business. Panic crept in as Adam realized how bad this could get. He decided to retrace his steps. First, he checked every corner of his apartment to make sure the drive wasn't lying around somewhere. It wasn't. Then he called the train station's customer service line to ask about lost items. "I was stopped by security this morning, and now something from my bag is missing," Adam explained. "Did you file a complaint with the officers at the time?" the representative asked in a monotone voice. "No," Adam admitted. "I didn't realize it was missing until later." "Unfortunately, if you didn't report it on the spot, there's not much we can do," the representative said. "But feel free to come down and speak with the security team." Adam clenched his fist. Something about the whole situation didn't add up. He decided to go back to the station and confront the officers directly. When he arrived, the station was as busy as ever, the noise and movement making it hard to focus. He spotted the same two officers who had stopped him earlier and approached them. "Excuse me," Adam said, trying to keep his voice calm. "I think something went missing from my bag after your search this morning." The taller officer barely glanced at him. "We didn't take anything," he said flatly. Adam pressed on. "Can I see the security footage from earlier? I just need to check." "No footage is available," the officer interrupted, cutting him off. "Move along." Frustration bubbled inside Adam. He knew they were hiding something, but he wasn't sure how to prove it. As he left the station, one thought burned in his mind. This isn't over. The rest of the day passed in a blur for Adam. He couldn't focus on anything. His work, his meals, even his sleep. All he could think about was the missing USB drive and the strange way the officers had acted. Something didn't sit right with him. And he couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just an isolated incident. He had to find out more. Adam knew that if he didn't get answers soon, the consequences could be disastrous. His client depended on him, and the files on that drive were too important to let slip through his fingers. The next morning, he decided to take action. Adam sat at his desk and began researching online, trying to find any information that might help. He searched for stories about stolen items from bag searches at train stations. At first, the results were mostly generic, nothing that seemed to match his situation. But as he dug deeper, he found something that caught his attention. A forum post from someone who had experienced a similar incident. The post described how the user had their bag searched, and soon after, valuable items like wallets and electronics had gone missing. The most troubling part was that the post suggested the thefts were part of a larger pattern, a scheme where specific individuals were targeted. The post didn't offer many details, but the idea that Adam wasn't the only one was both a relief and a worry. Adam spent the next few hours scrolling through similar posts, learning about others who had gone through what he was experiencing. It was clear that something was happening, but the question remained, why? He couldn't let it go. With his frustration growing, Adam decided to visit the train station again, this time to get a closer look at the security personnel. He wasn't sure what he was hoping for, but he needed to be certain about what had happened to his bag. When Adam arrived at the station, he stood near the security checkpoint, pretending to look at the schedules on the board. He observed the officers as they scanned passengers' bags. Their movements were quick and efficient, but there was something about their attitude that seemed off. Adam noticed they were speaking in hushed tones to one another, their eyes darting around the crowded station. It struck him then. They were being too careful, almost as if they were trying to make sure no one noticed anything unusual. Adam's heart raced. This wasn't just routine security. There was something more to it. He decided to approach one of the officers. "Excuse me," he said casually, trying to sound calm. "Can I ask you a few questions about your security procedures?" The officer gave him a blank stare. "Not now. Please step back." Adam hesitated but nodded and backed away. He wasn't going to get answers from them right now. However, something about the way they reacted made him even more suspicious. Later that evening, Adam decided to ask around. He spoke to several passengers who had passed through the checkpoint that morning. A few mentioned they had been stopped for bag checks as well, though they hadn't noticed anything missing. But one woman's response caught his attention. "I didn't think anything of it," she said, "but I saw them look at the bottom of my bag, where I keep my wallet. It was odd." Adam's mind raced. He was beginning to piece things together. The officers were looking for specific things, and they were being careful about what they took. But what was their goal? Adam knew he had to keep digging, even if it meant uncovering something much larger than he had expected. The following day, as Adam sat at his desk, his phone buzzed with a new notification. He opened the email, expecting to find an update from his client, or perhaps some work-related message. But the sender's name was unfamiliar. Anonymous. Curious, Adam opened the email. The subject line simply read, "You're not alone." The message inside was brief but chilling. It read, "I saw the officers search your bag yesterday. They took something from it. I have footage. If you want to know the truth, meet me tonight at the park near your train station. I'll explain everything." Adam's heart skipped a beat. This was the break he had been waiting for. He had no idea who had sent the email or how they knew about his situation. But he couldn't ignore the opportunity to learn more. The email didn't offer any further details, but Adam knew he had to act quickly. He was both excited and nervous. If this was a trap, it could lead to more trouble. But if it wasn't, if the person really had evidence, it could be exactly what he needed to expose what was happening. That evening, Adam made his way to the park near the train station. The sun had just begun to set, and the park was nearly empty, except for a few joggers and people walking dogs. Adam sat on a bench, glancing at his phone every few seconds. His mind raced, thinking about the potential dangers of meeting a stranger in such a situation, but his desire for answers pushed him forward. As the minutes passed, Adam started to doubt whether anyone would show up. The park was quiet, and there was no sign of anyone nearby who seemed out of place. Just as he was about to give up, he heard a soft voice behind him. "Are you Adam?" Startled, Adam turned around. Standing there was a woman in her late 20s with short brown hair and a cautious expression. She looked like she didn't belong in the park, as though she was trying to avoid drawing attention. "Yes, I am," Adam replied, standing up from the bench. "Are you the one who emailed me?" The woman nodded. "I have the footage. But you need to be careful. The people you're dealing with are dangerous." Adam's pulse quickened. "What are you talking about? Who are they? What are they after?" The woman glanced around nervously before pulling out her phone. She handed it to Adam, and the video that played on the screen made his stomach drop. The footage was from a security camera inside the train station, and it showed the two officers inspecting Adam's bag. As the video progressed, Adam saw something that sent a chill down his spine. One of the officers slipped a small item into his own pocket, an item that looked suspiciously like the USB drive Adam had been carrying. Adam's eyes widened. That's my drive." The woman nodded, her expression grim. They'd been doing this to other people too, taking valuable items and selling them to criminals or using them to get information. But this isn't just about money. They're building something bigger, something dangerous. Adam felt his head spin. But why me? Why did they take my drive? The woman hesitated for a moment before answering. "Because you're involved in something more important than you realize. But the details will have to wait. Right now, you need to get out of here." Just as she finished speaking, Adam noticed two figures approaching from the far end of the park. His heart raced. "They found us," the woman whispered. "Run." Without thinking twice, Adam grabbed the woman's arm and pulled her into the shadows between two tall trees. His heart raced as the footsteps grew louder. The last thing he wanted was to get caught in the park by whoever those figures were. They were getting too close. "Come on, we have to move," Adam whispered urgently, pulling the woman with him toward the far side of the park. He wasn't sure who they were, but he had a sinking feeling that they were after both of them. The woman seemed to hesitate for a moment, but then she nodded and ran alongside Adam. They dodged behind bushes and trees, doing their best to stay out of sight. Adam's thoughts raced. Who were these people? Why were they following them? He couldn't afford to find out the hard way. Once they were out of the park and onto a quieter street, Adam slowed his pace, glancing over his shoulder. The figures didn't seem to be following anymore, but Adam wasn't about to let his guard down. He had to get some answers, and fast. "Who are they?" Adam asked, his voice low. "Why were they following us?" The woman glanced nervously around before speaking. "They're part of a group that's been keeping tabs on people like you, people with valuable data. They think you know something, and they want to control it. But it's bigger than just stealing your USB drive." Adam felt his chest tighten. "What do you mean? What do they want from me? I'm just a designer." He didn't think he had anything valuable to give, except maybe the files on the drive, but that didn't explain the strange attention he was getting. The woman sighed. "They've been targeting people with access to sensitive information. You might think you're just working on a few client files, but someone has been watching you, Adam. Your work is more connected to something larger than you realize." Adam's mind raced. "What do you mean? This doesn't make sense." She took a deep breath, her eyes locking with his. "There's a project, a system, something that's going to change the way information is exchanged. And it's all happening in the background. They need people like you to be part of it. But you're not the only one. They'd done this to others too." Adam felt a wave of confusion wash over him. "I don't understand. Why would I be a part of something like that?" The woman reached into her pocket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. Here, you'll understand when you see this. It's a list of names. People like you. And you're not alone. They've been keeping track of everyone. She handed him the paper, and Adam took it, unfolding it carefully. As he read through the names, his stomach sank. These were people he had never heard of, but something about it felt wrong. Just then, Adam's phone buzzed. He glanced down, but he was too distracted to check it. Instead, he tucked the paper into his jacket pocket. "We need to lay low," the woman said urgently. "They'll be looking for us, especially now that they know you're onto them." Adam nodded, feeling a mix of fear and determination. "I can't just walk away from this. I need to know more." "You're right," the woman agreed. "But first, we need to stay safe. Then we'll figure out what to do next." The woman, whose name was now revealed to be Clara, led Adam down narrow side streets, making sure they stayed out of sight. The more Adam learned, the more he realized how deep the situation ran. It wasn't just a random search of his bag. It was part of something much bigger, something dangerous. "We need to go to a safe place," Clara said, her voice tight with worry. "Somewhere they won't think to look for us." Adam followed her, trying to keep up with her brisk pace, his mind spinning with all the new information. His hand still clutched the piece of paper she had given him, the list of names. As he read through it again, his stomach turned. Each name on that list was associated with sensitive data, people who had unknowingly been caught in a web much larger than they could have imagined. The thought that his name could be on that list, too, made him feel like he was being hunted. "What are we dealing with here, Clara?" Adam asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Who are these people? What do they want?" Clara looked over her shoulder as if making sure they weren't being followed, then answered quietly, "This group has been operating in the shadows for years. They've been gathering information from people like you, people who don't even know they're being targeted. They collect data, and it's not just for money. They have plans, big plans." Adam felt the weight of her words. His throat tightened. Plans for what? Clara didn't answer right away. She turned a corner, ducking into an alley that led to an old, nondescript building. It was the kind of place that looked abandoned, dark windows and peeling paint. But Adam followed her inside without a second thought. It felt like their only option. Once inside, Clara led him down a hallway to a small room at the back of the building. The place smelled of old books and dust, but Clara didn't seem bothered. She immediately went to a computer in the corner and booted it up. Adam glanced around the room, still trying to make sense of what was happening. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had stumbled into something far bigger than he could handle. Clara turned to him after a few moments. "You're not just caught up in something random. The files on your USB drive aren't the only thing they've been after. They want your knowledge, your skills. That's why they're targeting people like you." Adam's eyes widened. "My skills? What do you mean?" She gestured to the list in his hand. "They've been monitoring people in your field, designers, developers, and others who work with technology. They want to create something bigger than anything we've seen. And they need people who can make it happen." Adam shook his head in disbelief. "What could I possibly have to do with any of that? I'm just trying to make a living. I didn't sign up for any of this." Clara sighed. "I know, but you're already involved. The work you do, the clients you've worked with, they're all connected. And now, they know you know too much." Adam's mind reeled. He never thought his simple design work would get him tangled in such a web. But the more he listened to Clara, the more he understood that there was no turning back now. "I'm going to help you," Clara said, her voice firm. "But we need to act fast. The longer we wait, the more dangerous it becomes. You're already on their radar, and it's only a matter of time before they come after you again." Adam nodded, his fear turning into a sense of determination. He didn't know where this path would lead, but he wasn't about to back down. Not now. Adam sat at the small desk in the corner of the dark room, his thoughts racing. Clara had just finished explaining everything she knew, and now it was up to him. He was in too deep to back out. His life, his work, everything had suddenly become part of a much bigger, more dangerous story. But even with all the fear swirling inside him, Adam knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let this go. Clara had set him up with a safe place to stay, but they couldn't hide forever. They needed to take action, to get answers before it was too late. "What's the plan?" Adam asked, trying to sound calm, though his heart was pounding in his chest. Clara didn't hesitate. "We need to get in touch with the other people on the list. They might have more information, more pieces to this puzzle. If we can put everything together, we can expose them." Adam wasn't sure how they would contact these strangers, but Clara had already thought ahead. She showed him a small encrypted device she had been carrying, one that could send messages without being traced. It wasn't much, but it was their only option. They started reaching out to the names on the list. Some responses came quickly, others not at all. But as they made contact with more people, it became clear that Adam wasn't the only one who had been targeted. These were people who had all been unknowingly connected to the same mysterious operation. The more they talked, the more Adam began to understand the scale of what they were facing. This was bigger than just stolen USB drives. This was about controlling information, manipulating people, and building something that could change everything. After hours of communication, they finally had a plan. Adam felt a sense of urgency that he hadn't felt before. "We need to go to the authorities," he said, looking at Clara. "If we can't stop them ourselves, we have to make sure someone else knows what's going on." Clara shook her head, her face serious. "We can't trust the authorities. Not yet. They've been involved in this for too long. We need to go public with the story, expose them before they can do any more damage." Adam took a deep breath. It felt like they were stepping into the unknown, but at the same time, he realized that they were doing what needed to be done. If they didn't act now, they might never get the chance. Clara set up a secure meeting with a journalist she trusted, someone who could help them get the word out. The journalist had been following stories of corruption and shady operations for years, and she knew how to bring the truth to light. But it wouldn't be easy. The group they were up against was powerful, and they would stop at nothing to keep their secrets hidden. The following night, Adam and Clara met the journalist in a small, quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. The journalist, a woman named Laura, listened carefully as they explained everything they had uncovered. She didn't speak for a long time, but when she did, her words were exactly what Adam needed to hear. "This story is bigger than I thought," Laura said, her eyes sharp. "If what you're saying is true, it could shake things up in ways you can't imagine. But we'll need concrete evidence, something undeniable." Adam glanced at Clara, then back at Laura. They had that evidence. The footage, the messages, the list, it was all there. The truth was finally within their grasp. The following days felt like a blur. Adam, Clara, and Laura worked tirelessly to compile all the evidence they had gathered. They carefully reviewed every piece, making sure there were no gaps, no doubts. The footage, the list of names, the messages, they all pointed to the same conclusion. There was a hidden network, pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Laura worked quickly to prepare a story. She was a seasoned journalist, used to dealing with stories that could change the course of things. But this felt different. This was not just a scandal. It was a powerful organization with resources that reached deep into society. It could cause massive upheaval, and the people behind it would do anything to protect their secrets. Adam was exhausted but determined. He spent hours with Clara, cross-referencing information, making sure they were ready to release everything. They had to get the truth out. The more they worked, the more they understood just how much was at stake. This wasn't just about his missing USB drive. It was about stopping a group that had been manipulating information for years, hiding in plain sight. Finally, the day came when they were ready. Laura had arranged for the story to go live, but there was a lingering uncertainty. They couldn't predict what would happen after the truth came out. Would the public believe them? Would the authorities step in? Or would the group make their move? At the same time, Adam received an unexpected call from his client, the one he'd been so worried about since the missing drive incident. His heart skipped a beat as he answered the phone. Adam. The client's voice was calm but firm. "We've heard the rumors. We're sorry about what happened. We've also been looking into the situation, and we believe you. The files on that drive, they were never meant to be exposed. We'll make sure your reputation stays intact." Adam felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had feared the worst, that he'd lose his job, his reputation, everything. But now, it seemed that his client was on his side. They knew he wasn't involved in anything shady. "Thank you," Adam said, his voice sincere. "I'm just glad it's over." But Clara's face, which had been calm throughout the whole process, now showed a flicker of worry. She had been watching the news updates closely, and the story was spreading fast. People were talking, and the reactions were coming in. Some were outraged, others confused. And then, just as Adam thought they were done, the news took another turn. "We've got a new problem," Clara said, her voice quiet. "There's a bigger part of this story, one that's still hidden. The people behind it all are already working to cover their tracks. It's not over yet." Adam's heart sank. Just when he thought they had exposed everything, Clara's words made him realize that there were still more layers to peel away. But for now, the world knew the truth. The story was out there, and it couldn't be erased. They'd done what they could, but there was still more work ahead. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time, Adam felt like he wasn't alone in the fight. The truth had come to light, and there was no turning back now.